I give the people what they want.
All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Thank you, guys. We're back for week 2. Finally, we get to see Adam's pretty face.
Appreciate
thank
you guys
for sticking through episode 1.
Listening to Third Down Punt on
I
our
do appreciate
inaugural pilot.
Yeah, we got our first hater. Shout out to the hater. We got 1 dislike on the last video.
Hey, if you don't have haters, you haven't made it yet.
Yeah, that's true. Leave us a comment. Let us know why you disliked it. We're about to talk about one of the best divisions in football.
By far, I don't think it's close. I think it is the best division in football, as
Definitely.
far as from an NFL perspective.
I don't think it's
Yeah.
necessarily the best fantasy division, but
Maybe
yeah.
not. Yeah.
It's a great fantasy division unless you like defense.
What?
That made no
I'm just
sense,
saying
but
they
go
don't play a
on.
whole lot of defense in this division. We're talking about the NFC West. Do you want to start with maybe the Super Bowl runner-up, the San Francisco 49ers?
Sure.
Anything you guys like on this team here?
I'll kick it off because there's not much that I like, honestly. I
Ooh.
think that Jimmy G is a value play here.
Uh-huh.
I think he's listed in redraft at a few different sites around QB 20, somewhere between 18 and 22 even I saw him upwards.
I agree with.
Last year he came off of an ACL tear in an incredibly conservative Kyle Shanahan offense and was QB 14.
Wow.
So
Oh, I didn't
I
know
would
he was so
imagine
high.
he's going to be floating right around there. Maybe a little higher even, maybe even a little bit lower. But if you're getting him at QB 20 price, I feel like that's a bargain with very little downside. The only way Jimmy G is finishing below QB 25, which would be a bust for him at that draft position, would be if he gets hurt. And injuries you can't predict. He hasn't had a string of injuries, just the one. So other than Jimmy G, I think stay away from all other 49ers players, including Kittle. Maybe a little bit of a hot take. Listen, not saying stay away from him, but you got to be drafting him pretty much as tight end 1, maybe
Yeah.
tight end 2.
Yeah, especially in
Probably.
redraft.
I'm not so sure about that strategy to be taking a tight end that early. Maybe different strokes for different folks, but all other 49ers I'm fading. That backfield is a mess. It's going to be too up and down from week to week. Shanahan's going to rely on random characters to carry the offense
Yeah.
in that
Yeah,
defense.
especially with Mostert requesting a trade. Mostert, I don't even know how to say his last
I'm
name.
taking-
It's must start.
I'm taking Jimmy G at value in redraft and dynasty. Dynasty's a different
Yeah.
story for sure. When you're buying players like Deebo Samuel, he might be a good buy right now, but I'm just kind of.
When's the last time the Niners had a good wide
sketchy.
receiver?
I'm just
on
staying
their-
away
on
from the
their
49ers.
team?
Emmanuel
honestly.
Sanders put up some numbers on him last year.
That's true. Emmanuel Sanders puts up numbers everywhere he goes.
He is
though.
a very underappreciated wide receiver. I agree.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he does this year. Last year, I think their best receiver was Deebo Samuel at wide receiver 26, which
Yeah.
isn't even really a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, but you got to look at how their offense played out.
Mhm.
I do think that teams are going to start playing the run against them more because they were winning games when
They have
Jimmy
to.
Garoppolo was throwing like 8 times a game.
Yep.
In the
Yep.
playoffs.
You can't lose a game to a team and have their quarterback throw it less than 10 times.
Uh,
They're going to take away the run against the 49ers, or at least do what they can.
We
Last
did see.
year, Kittle was their most targeted player and only had 107 targets.
That's insane.
That is.
Imagine if Kittle got the amount of
that?
targets that other number 1 options would get. Imagine he
Like
got 150
150.
targets with a conservative offense. So I mean, his catch rate would go down because I think he had like an 80% catch rate last year, which is
Yep.
absurd.
Yep. Everybody
But-
remembers that 4th and 2 that they needed like maybe 10 yards to get a field goal against the Saints, and Kittle had that monster 40-yard stiff arm play and got face masked at the end to seal the deal. He's
Yeah.
he's a great real life player as well as a fantasy
Yeah.
player.
That's really surprising to hear that Kittle only got 107 targets. I was
That is really
surprised.
surprising.
Listen to Travis Kelce's last 5 years of targets, starting at 2019 and working our way back. 136, 150, 122, 117, 103. Now I realize Kittle's younger, but that we have to work our way all the way back to 2015, was Travis Kelce, even one of the best tight ends in the league at that point, getting 100 targets. Kittle deserves more targets than 107.
Oh, definitely. I
he
think
should be getting
he's-
like 120.
I think
At
he
least.
should get more this year, but they're really a run first team.
But like Adam said, they might start airing it out. They did air out against the Saints.
They have
and
to.
they put up
just-
a
Yeah, I
monster
think
points.
it depends on the game plan.
But I guess
Yeah.
they got to the Super Bowl last year doing it their way, so it's tough to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Anybody that we're interested for wide receivers looking forward on the Niners?
Maybe Deebo Samuel in Dynasty. Maybe Brandon Ayuk.
I like Ayuk in Dynasty. In our league, he went at 206. That feels like
Yeah.
a really good spot for a first-round receiver if you can get
Yeah.
him in the
Yeah.
mid-seconds.
Are
it's good value.
we now with
redraft,
Debo
no.
going in with the foot injury? Which wide receiver are we taking first on the Niners?
I don't know. Debo's still proving it. The thing with Brandon Ayuk is like he was a first round wide receiver. He's a first round wide receiver, but he's still gonna be the number 3 option on their team coming up this year. Like Debo Samuel still had him on the
I
pecking
do like
order.
his athleticism.
He is. Yeah, he's a lot. He's really similar to Debo. They have
Yeah,
very
he
similar
is.
skill sets. I'm looking forward to seeing how he's going to be used.
What might be a good strategy is just to take a shot at somebody on
Yeah.
that wide receiver core late in a redraft round or in a dynasty even. You could probably get Debo Samuel relatively cheap. Ayuk you could get cheap.
Yeah.
Just try to snatch one of those wide receivers and see if by the end of the year they pan out and really blow up, because I feel like one of them has
Yeah,
capability.
I agree. Even in dynasty, like you could always
Definitely.
like Kendrick Bourne was a kind of a bye week fill in last
Yep.
year on some weeks.
That-
Some
that
weeks.
that could be a stretch. Hey, I have a question. Speaking of the top tight ends, do you guys know who the top tight end was in 2017? Number 1 fantasy finish. Going to be a throwback. He's currently in the
Greg
league.
Olsen.
Gronkowski.
Huh.
Oh,
Just 2
wow.
years ago. So,
That's 3, but yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting
God knows.
stat.
you guys want to talk a little bit about the
Where
Cardinals
did that come
here?
from? What were we trying to
You
tie
know,
that into?
I
I
was,
thought you were trying to tie that into Greg Olsen being number 1 and going to the Seahawks.
No, I was looking up basically targets and
Greg
players,
Olsen?
and I was surprised to see that Gronk was a number 1 tight end his last year, and I just thought that was interesting and worth
Kind of,
mentioning.
yeah.
All right, Arizona.
Arizona, yeah, this is an interesting team, fun
Very
team.
interesting, yeah. Fun
Drew,
to watch.
You want to kick it off?
Yeah, I mean, so many wide receivers. Larry Fitz was still 900 yards last year.
Mhm.
Still definitely valuable in redraft. I mean, dynasty if you're a win now team, as your wide receiver 3 in a win now team or a flex play. I mean, he's definitely a decent choice. Christian Kirk is young. Showed a lot of promise last year, especially with Kyler developing
Yeah, I
a little
like
chemistry.
Kirk a lot.
But
Yep.
I don't know how I feel about Kirk now with DeAndre
With
Hopkins,
coming in. Yeah, they have. I know we mentioned this last week. They have Keyshawn Johnson. They have
Andy Isabella,
Andy
Hakeem
Isabella,
Butler.
Hakeem Butler. They have a lot of
Yeah.
wide receivers, and with Hopkins coming in, I don't think they're all going to be able to eat.
Kenyon Drake's also a good pass catcher.
So here's
Yes, he is.
I like the Arizona Cardinals team. It's their, I think, ADP for their players though is all set relatively high. So
Yes.
it depends at where your expectations are. They're all good players. To get Kyler Murray in a super flex or DeAndre Hopkins or Kenyon Drake or any of those, but those players are all going to come with expense. And Kenyon Drake is
Yeah.
also maybe not going to be the least expensive of the 3 that I just named, but he's going to come with the most risk of the 3.
Without a doubt.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, when we get to the bust section, who knows who might throw Kenyon
Ooh,
Drake
that's a
in
foreshadowing.
Kyler
But-
Murray's going top 10 in Superflex ADP.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Here's why: because he was top 10 last year, and he's rookie, only getting better. The Cardinals' defense was let up the most yards of any team in the NFL last year. They were dead last. Lions were second to last, of course, only by like 30 yards, not even, so very close. But
Speaking of the Cardinals defense,
There's
they
gonna be
got an
opportunity on that Cardinals
explosive
team.
linebacker safety hybrid that's going to take over the league.
at
And
IDP,
with Isaiah Simmons.
IDP
Ooh.
101, baby.
I absolutely love this guy. He's an absolute monster.
I'm pretty sure Sleeper has him listed as a safety too.
I hope so.
I think they give him Sleeper eligibility.
That would be one of the coolest things.
If
is I could start him
if
at
you're in
safety.
an IDP league, I'd love to get my hands on this guy and just see how
You know what we
Cliff
should
uses
do?
him.
We should do a deep, not this time, but we should do a little bit of a deep IDP dive for one of
Ooh,
our.
that'd be fun for sure.
See if I think that would be for some more of the intense dynasty owners.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just a little bit deeper
Yeah.
dive because
But if they're watching the Third Down Punt podcast, they're probably in pretty deep.
that's true. But I think honestly, the Cardinals are all good buys. They
Yeah.
all have their risk. The thing is you just have to get them at a decent value position. If
Yeah.
you're buying them at the top end of their ADP, they come with a lot of risk because who knows where they're going to end up because they're pretty unproven
And
as a team.
I think the Cardinals are one of the hottest teams, one of the most hyped teams, definitely trending up. Cliff was a monster at Texas Tech in terms of offense, obviously. Their
Yes, his defense was
atrocious.
horrible.
I'm excited to see what they can do this year. Quick question. When Cliff was in the NFL, he played on 5 different franchises. Can you guys name any of them?
I cannot name one team he played for.
Didn't he play on the Jets?
Yep, he was on the Jets.
He was
for a
on the
little
Jets.
while.
I've seen a
Yeah.
picture of him in a Jets uniform. He looks like a damn fool in it too. He
Yeah.
does not look handsome at all.
No, he was-
much better coach than player.
Weird.
He put up insane college numbers though.
Did he?
At Texas Tech.
What?
Insane, yeah.
Huh. I did not know that. Moving on. Let's talk about the Rams. What do you guys think of the Rams?
I'll take this first because the Rams are my favorite bye team in this division.
Interesting.
They're coming off of a down year, big time down year. Think about this. This time last year, everybody is boasting Sean McVay is the next coming of Jesus. Everybody's trying to hire Sean McVay's partners, people that have just brushed by him and got some of his dandruff on him. That's who they were hiring everywhere. He's still that guy. He's still really smart. They had a broken down offensive line last year. Gurley was running on fumes. It just all wasn't structured well. They didn't build the
their
team
team
well.
was crumbling last year.
I'm
for
not
sure.
saying they're going to be great this year, but their defense is going to maybe not be as good as it was last year because of all the big pieces that they're signing and have cap space taken up into, and they're investing in their offensive line and their running game. If you look all down their positions, Jared Goff is a phenomenal value, very similar to Jimmy G. He's at QB 19. ESPN has him ranked at
Wow.
QB 19.
That's nuts.
Listen to
I
his
kind of agree with him.
last 3 year finishes: 12, 7, and 13. He's not finished even close to QB 19.
Yeah, and this is an offense that I think could really take off if they get an established running game like they had just a few years
They're
ago.
going to get
I
back to
think
their
that's what they
roots,
need, is
off
established
play
running game.
action, and
Yeah.
but that's Jared Goff's strength when he can do one-step reads off of play action
Yeah.
and get the ball out. He's not great when he has to stand in the pocket, go through 2-3 progressions, and make a tough throw downfield.
I love
Yeah.
Cam Akers. Adam, I know you love Cam Akers. Do you?
I do.
You want to say anything about this guy?
I think here's the thing about Cam Akers is his price in Dynasty I think is fair. He's right now
Yeah.
listed as running back 18, right around there. I personally have him a little higher, but I think that's fair. I could see 15. I think is about a perfect spot for him. I have him around 13, 14.
Interesting.
But I think 15 is a pretty good. 15 to 18 is a good spot. In redraft though, he's going at running back 29 on
Wow.
ESPN. Along the likes with James White, Tariq Cohen, Jordan Howard. This is going to be a league winner for people that are out
sure.
there. If somehow you're just a average fantasy player and are
People
listing the
just don't
third
know.
down punt,
Yeah.
draft Cam Akers late in your redraft,
For
and
sure.
he's going to finish as top 15 or top 18, and he's going to way
Definitely top
surpass,
20
or at
probably.
least have that potential to do that because of the touches that are vacated from Gurley.
Last year, Henderson had 40 attempts. Malcolm Brown had 69 attempts. Neither
They
of
did
these
have
guys.
Todd Gurley though.
That's true.
Like how many touches do you honestly think Cam Akers gonna get this year? I think he'll probably get 10 a game.
No, touches, 10 a game? You want to
Yeah.
bet on that? That puts him at 160 total touches this year.
Maybe 10. Okay.
I'll
Let me
bet you
rephrase.
he has over
Maybe-
200 touches this year. I'll
Maybe.
bet you he has over 220 touches this year. I'll even up it.
I don't agree with the people saying he's just going to step in and take over Todd Gurley's role. I think it's going to be like, I think he might get like 55% of the touches.
They were excited about Henderson last year. Sean McVay was raving about him, saying they were willing to trade up. They were lucky he fell to them.
Yeah, but then they drafted Cam Akers this year, so it's just coach talk.
Yeah, that's true.
And Cam Akers was an outstanding prospect. He's one of like the
He
best
was,
prospects.
and
in
he,
the
yeah,
league.
he was stuck on
so
a
good
really,
at
really bad
LSU.
Florida State team. Florida State's offensive line was horrible.
Listen,
And-
Todd
and he
Gurley.
still averaged massive numbers, 5 yards a carry. I
Yeah.
think. his
Todd
senior year.
Gurley had 223 carries and 31 receptions.
And so
So he had
250 touches.
He had 250.
It's like his average
touches.
over like the last 5 years.
No, that's
Well,
way
actually,
way
yeah,
down from the
yeah.
past like 3 years. It's
Yeah.
like as low since his rookie year.
But
But-
kind of surprising.
Yeah, well, his rookie year he actually had more carries but less receptions because Jeff Fisher does not know how to coach. an
About that
offense.
sophomore year.
What's Jeff Fisher doing now?
Dude, his sophomore year was
Really
a big
bad,
slump.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hey. Speaking.
but he got a lot of touches that year.
Speaking of his sophomore year, Todd Gurley was the running back 1 in 2017. Of the top 15
Is
running backs.
Is
in
this
20
podcast from 2017? Are you going to give us the top Billboard hits of 2017 too? Is this like one of those reports you do in middle school
Sure.
where
What
everybody
movie
gets
I
a
can
year?
give you the top Billboard hits.
What was the biggest pandemic in 2017? That's the
God.
question.
Oh God, probably Antonio Brown's Facebook Live video in the locker room.
Antonio Cromartie's 12th kid, I think.
Anyway, Gurley
What-
was running back 1 in 2017.
Okay, let's knock this last team out here.
Oh,
We've been talking a lot about the
Sure,
Rams.
sure,
here.
sure,
This is
sure.
a mess. We're talking
Yeah.
about Todd Gurley. He's not even on the Rams
Are
anymore.
we getting excited? All right. Let's talk about the Seahawks. I'm excited about the Seahawks. I love Russ. He's one
like
of
the
the most
Seahawks.
consistent players in the league.
Tyler Lockett's super underappreciated.
Yeah,
So's
and
Chris
Tyler
Carson.
Lockett's a monster. Are you drafting Chris Carson?
No, I hate Chris Carson, but every single year he's a top 15 running back.
He is when he's on the field. I
Yeah.
love Chris Carson too, but the problem
Did he just
is,
break his hip? That's pretty brutal.
did he break
Is that
his
what
hip,
happened
Jeff?
to him?
So? Yeah.
Jesus
Wait,
Christ!
hang
we
on.
gotta
Don't
be
quote
a
me
little
out that.
more
You can't-
updated here.
I don't
You
think
can't
he-
just.
did he
I
break
can't
his
just
hip?
say that and have you guys all question me.
I feel like if he broke his hip, the Rashad Penny hype shouldn't be.
Rashad
off
Penny
the
tore his
train.
ACL.
Oh, that's true.
They were both expected to come back.
Drew, which are you taking? DK or are you taking
Season-ending
Tyler Lockett?
hip injury.
He didn't break his hip. It's his hip flex. He had hip dysplasia like dogs get. I am buying Tyler Lockett.
Adam,
the-
you're buying DK. Go. Debate.
I am buying DK.
I think Tyler Lockett's price is definitely a lot lower than what his actual production is. He's kind of like one of those players who's super underappreciated, kind of like Keenan Allen, kind of like Robert Woods, where you can people who own him are going to want to sell him for what their price is, but you're not going to want to buy him for that price.
Look, this is why I'm buying DK, because the Seahawks are they're going to turn into an air raid offense. We just listed the
Whoa.
running backs and the Rashad Penny. Why isn't the Rashad Penny hype? Because he's trash.
Yeah, he is, but Chris Carson's not.
But he's injured, and he's injured a lot. And
He
is
is
he
injured a lot.
excellent? He's pretty good. Russell Wilson's going to be throwing the ball more. I'm buying every part of the Seattle passing attack.
What if
really.
Josh Gordon goes back there? Are you going to buy Josh Gordon?
I mean, I'll buy him in redraft. I actually had him in redraft a year or two ago. I won't buy him in Dynasty like you.
Yeah,
Fool.
I was in a redraft league last year with work, and somebody took him in the 3rd round.
He was last year the year? His years bundled.
2 years
blend
ago was
together.
when he had a
was
good
on
year on the Patriots.
That's when I
He
had
started on
him.
the Patriots last year, then smoked weed.
I think I sold him. I think I sold him to you, Vaso, didn't I? For a
might
piece
have.
that maybe helped me win the championship.
I don't know,
Who knows?
but
Who
no,
knows?
but like I said about Tyler Lockett, I think he's super underappreciated. He's going to be a top 15 wide receiver again this year.
Yeah,
he's the Doug
one
Baldwin
of the most
role.
efficient.
Yes,
wide
extremely
receivers in the
efficient.
NFL.
One of the best deep threats. Russell Wilson's favorite target this year.
Yeah, there was a while that through like 10 games, Russ had a perfect passer rating.
That was
in
all season 2 years
2018.
ago. He had for the whole season. He had a perfect passer rating when targeting.
Does
Lockett.
that speak more about Russ or Lockett?
I think both, because Lockett had like 55 catches and like 67 targets,
Oh my!
for like 950
God.
yards, and what did he have, like 13 touchdowns or
I can't
something?
believe he only had that many targets. They gotta feed
It's
that
crazy.
guy.
That was 2 years ago. Last year, I think he had around 100 targets because he was playing the Doug Baldwin role. We were playing more from the slot.
So I think this is a pretty good segue right into our next topic, which is least likely to bust. Because Tyler Lockett is
Yeah.
actually my least likely
Which I agree with.
from this division. We're doing least likely to bust from.
Well,
this
what do we
division.
mean by least likely to bust? Like, what is
Define it
that?
however you want. We can each kind of go through and
Yeah.
explain why we
Sure.
picked who we did. Tyler Lockett, I'm picking him because right now he's ADP redraft wide receiver 20.
I think that's around his ADP in Dynasty, too.
And yeah, it was right around his
Yeah.
ADP. I actually saw him upwards at 15, which
Did
I
you?
thought was pretty fair.
I saw-
I would have him around there.
I saw his ADP was like 2 spots higher than Terry McLaurin, and that blew my mind.
But listen, so his last 2 years, his wide receiver finish in PPR has gone 13 and 16. So that right there is past 2 years. I'm feeling like Tyler Lockett's on the ascent. Is he a top 10 receiver? I don't know. I think he's a Brandon Cooks type player. That player that floats at the back end.
Yeah.
At some point in the season, he'll be wide receiver 8. At some point in the season, he'll be wide receiver 16. But he's going to finish the season right around wide receiver 12 or 13. And if you're getting him at wide receiver 20 price, you're getting him at least in redraft way, way late.
Yeah.
For high-end production. And in Dynasty, he's a prime win-now candidate because he's got a great attribute, and that's he's got win-now label price tag with relative young age. He's only 27.
Yeah.
You
just
can make
turned
you
27,
can make the
too.
argument that he's going to be in his prime for the next 3 to 4
Yeah.
years. So if you're buying a win now player that has a 4-year prime window, that's a pretty good win now. That player. That's not an Emmanuel Sanders or a Julio Jones or a
Yeah.
Doug Baldwin at the end of his career. You're buying a player that is still in the prime. I'm assuming. With DK is obviously on the ascend, so we'll see how
Ooh,
that
I
target
love
share
DK.
takes over. But
I'm excited
I
to see
am
what he does.
I don't know.
all in on Tyler
I
Lockett.
feel like
as far as,
Lockett kind of stepped into the Doug Baldwin role, and DK kind of stepped into that Lockett role where he's just like the vertical outside guy. They
Mhm.
top off the defense. So they complement each other really well now.
Yeah,
But
and
I think Tyler
Russ is
Lockett's
so
safer.
good at finding DK. I could tell DK on another team might not, get as many opportunities,
Yeah.
but Russ is so good at finding people.
The
Well-
Seahawks are good in general, using players to their strengths, not asking them to do what they're not good at. And
Russ's
DK's
Yeah.
good
deep
at-
ball is phenomenal,
Oh, it's
though, and I mean
amazing.
he's one of the best in the league, if
Yeah.
not the best
Mhm.
in the league.
Maybe the best
I
think he's
quarterback
the
in the
best.
Have
league.
him
Maybe
as the
Aaron
best.
Rodgers,
It's- I would Patrick Mahomes is
Yeah.
Yeah,
tough to argue with,
and
but
Lamar really opens up the playbook. But
he does.
you got a least likely to bust.
I do have a least likely to bust. I have Cam Akers. I just see him
Interesting.
going
That
into a
is
wide
interesting.
open backfield. You're getting him for a relatively cheap value, and based on that price point, you're going to get a consistent running back. Who knows where he's going to finish, but it just seems like he's stepping into a wide open situation where the ceiling is as high as he wants it to be.
The floor is also in the basement.
Yeah,
That's his what? Yeah.
I agree that he has a very high ceiling in that role, assuming he fulfills Todd Gurley's role. His ceiling is top 5 running back, but I feel like his floor is really low
Yeah. So
considering.
do I. He's not the prospect Gurley was, so he's not just going to come in and automatically
Mhm.
get those touches.
And he was a little underwhelming in college. I know he played
Yeah.
behind an awful line at Florida State, but he's just slightly underwhelming. Let's not act like the Rams have a put together O-line right now. There is, at least as of last year, is a little bit in shambles. So
Yeah.
Who do you guys
Their
think
best line was 39.
Cam Akers remind you of in the NFL?
a little bit of Shady McCoy.
Ooh, I like that.
A little bit undersized, but super shifty.
I kind of see him like Mark Ingram, just like a tough player trying to grind those.
no way,
yards
he's
out.
fast.
Yeah, he is. He's
an athlete.
He's quick, yeah.
Maybe a little quicker Mark
'Cause
Ingram.
Shady McCoy's not fast. He's super quick.
Yeah.
And he's undersized, kind of like Cam Akers.
Yeah. Let's see who else. Do you guys have any players that you think are any more bust-proof players? I got Russ in there. That's an obvious one.
I've got one more bust-proof player in this division. He's maybe I haven't talked about him yet, really. So, Robert Woods.
Great one.
Nice. Yeah.
Right now, he's at. This is almost shameful. In redraft, he's wide receiver 24. As on, as on Fantasy Pros. In Dynasty, wide receiver 30 on FantasyFootballCalculator.com. Whatever I googled and found a ranking on him. 30. I mean, there's very little people that have top 10 wide receiver upside. I would say maybe there's 15, 18 receivers that really have that true upside. He's one of them.
Yeah.
You're getting him at wide receiver 30 in Dynasty and wide receiver 24
insane.
in redraft, and he's consistent too.
Yeah,
he
and
had
he's in
3
his prime.
touchdowns last year, and he was still a solid contributor. He was not a bust by any means. It's not
No.
like he's out there having a bad year, and he only had 3 touchdowns.
He had over 1,000 yards last year.
Yeah, he had a solid year, and he was underwhelming to start the season. But he came on strong and came on hot,
Yeah.
finished as wide receiver 14. The year before that, he was wide receiver 11. He had 2 touchdowns last year. He had 2 touchdowns last year and finished at wide receiver 14. That's in PPR. But that's a great
Yeah,
value you're getting for him. If you're paying wide receiver 30 or 25, wide receiver 25 price, you're getting a player that is almost bust.
And Goff is an underrated quarterback. He's good at making his receivers look good. Last year, I think Cooper Kupp finished at wide receiver 4.
I
Yeah,
think
but
Goff is
that's
good at
pretty
playing to the
solid.
scheme.
So do I. I think Cooper Kupp is just the guy that is always open on underneath routes. Whenever I watch Goff, I always feel underwhelmed, thinking like I always see him miss throws I feel like he should be making if he wants to be an elite quarterback. But player that I think is least likely to bust, it kind of contradicts what I said last week about DeAndre Hopkins. But I am going to say DeAndre Hopkins, and I'm saying he's least likely to bust because I think he's still going to be a top 10 wide receiver. His floor over the last 5 years has basically been a top 5 wide receiver. His only time he wasn't is when he had that really, really bad year with like 6 QBs in the Brockweiler. I don't think his floor is top 5 wide receiver. I think it's like top 11 or 12 wide receiver. But in my mind, he's still without a doubt going to be a wide receiver 1. He's still going to put up 1,100 yards, 6-7 touchdowns, 90 catches easily. Like he does that in his sleep.
Yeah, Hopkins is one of the best receivers.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I like his
it's tough to
ceiling might
ever
be a tad
count
bit
him
lower.
out.
I don't think he's going to get 1,700 yards and 10 touchdowns, but
Bust proof.
floor-wise,
He
he's
is
bust proof.
definitely bust proof.
yeah.
Is he maybe going to be underwhelming slightly? Yeah, I could
Yeah.
totally see
An
that.
underwhelming season by him though is
Yeah.
1,200 yards and 8
Exactly,
touchdowns.
and that's
So,
by no means a bust. If you're taking
Yeah.
him as your wide receiver, what probably 5 or 6 price?
Yeah.
I'm assuming and he's finishing routinely top
Yeah,
10.
it's
That's
like-
not bust.
It's like when Kelvin Johnson had that underwhelming year and he sold like 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns.
Is anybody interested in Van Jefferson on the Rams?
Maybe in Dynasty. I
Yeah,
don't
for
think
sure.
I think they're not going to have enough cap space to give Cooper Cup what he wants.
And
So
he's
they're going to let him walk.
step
He's going to
into
step in
that.
for Cooper Cup. That's what his skill set reminds
like
me
that.
I
of.
agree. And he's kind of that underneath finesse type player.
I like Van Jefferson in Dynasty, especially at his draft point. He was the 2nd-round draft pick. You can get him in the early 3rd of a Dynasty rookie draft.
All right,
Yeah.
let's get on to some busts. I like this topic a little bit more.
Can we talk about Kenyon Drake? The Arizona Cardinals did not want to pick up his 5th-year option, so he's really in a prove-it year.
Yeah.
And he's backed up by Chase Edmonds, who's a very talented back.
He was
in
good
his
when he played
own
last
right.
year.
Yeah, and Chase Edmonds is a guy that I'd be looking to grab super late in a draft because you
Yeah.
never know. This guy could easily take over Kenyon's job. Kenyon's job is his to lose right now. I did like him at the end of last year, but it's just with such little time in that role, it's just going to be it's going to be interesting seeing how they transition to this year.
I kind of agree. He kind of underwhelms me as a bell cow, but he's so explosive that he could win you a week with just
He is shifty.
5 touches.
I like him in the open field.
Yeah.
Who knows how he's going to do racking up, 250 carries. If it
I
comes
don't think
to
he's going to
that.
get that many carries.
I doubt it.
I don't think he
but-
can.
My bust in this division almost seems obvious. Is Kyler Murray. It's not that I don't like him. He seems like he's getting a massive amount of hype. It's Baker Mayfield last year-esque type hype.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
I like Kyler Murray. I think he showed a lot of promise last year. He's a quick decision maker. He's very fast on his feet. He's able to get
Yeah.
the ball out like lightning quick. His release is
Insane. It's insane.
unbelievable. You could tell he's a baseball player. But it's a lot to remain to be proven. Cliff Kingsbury's remain to be proven. Now they have a whole year of tape on him, which, as we saw from RG3, you see from players, just a ton of
Lamar's
players
gonna take a
that are
step back,
1-year
too.
wonders that just don't develop, or not necessarily
RG3.
don't develop, but just don't take that real next step. And when you're drafting Kyler Murray, he's looking at like top 5 dynasty QB prices,
Yeah.
which I get because he's young. But in a redraft, he's going like top 7 or even earlier. That's insane because he's got no proven track record at all. And I can't say he's going to bust because he's got the weapons around him and a hot offense with a poor defense, but I just think he's got a lot of boxes unchecked that I like to see checked if I'm trying to peg a top 5
Yeah,
QB.
they weren't
Yeah.
that good of a team last year. They are really struggling because of the poor offense, and then it makes the poor defense. Sorry, and then it makes the offense one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Can I do one more bust?
Go
Yeah,
for it before you
absolutely.
do mine.
The whole Seattle backfield.
I like that.
I don't have much explanation for it. I said earlier I think Seattle's going to go more air raid, and they're going to start splitting their carries up. Penny's going to be coming back in. Is he even going to play the first 6 weeks? Who knows? Carson's injured. They drafted a back. Are they going to bring in Marshawn Lynch again? God only knows. That backfield's a mess. I
It is a
guess you can
mess.
take Chris Carson, but I'm staying away.
Yeah, them in the Niners backfield I want nothing a part of.
Yeah.
Although I do own Tevin Coleman in our Dynasty League. My bust is Cooper Kupp.
Okay.
And I'm looking at his second half of last year. He only had over 6 targets twice. He had 6 targets twice, then 10
Wow.
targets twice. And that was after week 9, which was their bye week. And so they started using more 2 tight end sets to try helping out the offensive line, because it was really bad, especially to get that running game going. And that second half of the season, he had he only had over 50 yards 3 times. Never didn't break 100 yards. Only broke 66. He had a game with 53 yards, a game with 65 yards, a game with 99. Everything else other than that is like 40 yards and less. I think as they start going to a more 2 tight end set offense to help that running game, because I think Sean McVay's offensive system needs to get that running game going
I
for
think so
Goff
too.
to be able to succeed.
I think Goff needs it too.
Yeah, Goff definitely needs it. 'Cause like I said, he's really underwhelming whenever I watch him play, especially like trying to
He's a
make
system
multiple
carry
reads.
the
He's a
load,
system QB, yeah.
I think that has to say his processing is not where it should be to be a top end quarterback. He's got the talent. He can make tough throws.
He's inconsistent.
He's
to me.
not. He's not an A1
Yeah,
processor. in my
I agree.
opinion.
He's,
Can't
he's
get through his
kinda like
reads.
a
Fine.
Joe
though.
Flacco kind of.
I'd love to see him turn it around this year and just
But I don't know, like
sling it like.
But he's
Patty.
good value.
he is. Cooper Kupp to me.
Because I
isn't
think a lot of
somebody-
people are down on him. I'm down on him, just maybe not quite as hard as
I
other
don't
people.
like Jared Goff. That's why I sold him to you in our league, also. I don't think Cooper Kupp can succeed on the outside because he's just not athletic enough. He's a pretty decent route runner, but he's a slot guy. If
Yeah.
they're going to more 2 tight end sets, he's not going to be able to separate on the outside against those faster, more athletic cornerbacks. And he's just going to have an underwhelming year, especially where he's being drafted as a top 13, 14 wide receiver.
Yeah, no, I do like Cooper Kupp out of the slot. I don't really like him as the number 1 read outside, number 1 guy. You guys want to talk about dynasty versus redraft leagues and maybe
Let's go for it.
why each one's better or worse?
Yeah, sure.
You want to start, Drew?
Yeah, so there's definitely pros and cons to each. I am only in one dynasty league, but I was in multiple at one point. I'm in multiple redraft leagues every year that are really competitive. The thing I like most about redraft, it's really fun. My favorite thing about dynasty is startup drafts. Redraft drafts are just startup drafts essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always fun for me to draft, and I find myself kind of building similar teams, but just to spread my talent pool around. But other than that, like the strategy is not as complex. I don't see myself as getting ingrained into my teams that do dynasty leagues, which is why I like dynasty. It's year round. I get super into college football mainly because of dynasty. Because without dynasty, I'm more interested in just Michigan football, and I'm not really paying too much attention, especially to like Pac-12 prospects and like ACC prospects. But dynasty, I just like the strategy more. It's so much fun to do rookie drafts. It's just more fun to me. Like I can't explain how it is. Just the intensity of it is so much more rewarding when you win and do good than redraft.
Getting a really good player in a dynasty draft is way bigger of a deal than getting a great pick in a redraft.
Drafting Terry McLaurin last year in like the early 4th for somebody is a lot more rewarding than taking Josh Gordon in the 14th the year he came back.
Do you have any thoughts on it, Adam?
Yeah. I just want to say that it's a real shame that you had to bring up Michigan football in this. This was we were having a good time until that, but I don't know. I'm a little bit on the I love Dynasty. I love Dynasty as much as anybody out there, but it's for a certain type of person. Not everybody. Now you don't have to be making a fantasy football podcast that nobody's listening to love it that much, but you have to be active. You have to be year-round paying attention, trying to better your team, because if you're not, you're missing an opportunity.
Yeah.
And if you're missing an opportunity, you're either worsening yourself or you just don't care. And if you just don't care, then don't play Dynasty. What I think is the perfect example of it, one of our mutual friends that, Vaso, you are in a Dynasty league with, said it, and it just painted it perfect. In that Dynasty league, you were talking about, you said, this league sucks, blah, blah. There's no moves being made. Nobody makes any trades at all during the offseason. And our friend said, if you're in this league expecting these people to be super active or moving a ton of players or making trades during the offseason, you're in the wrong league. And I just thought, you're playing the wrong format then.
Yeah, that league is the wrong format.
If for 8-9 months out, nothing's wrong with redraft. I love redraft. It brings a hyper intensity like you wouldn't believe, because every team in your league is going for it. In Dynasty, how often do you have that? Never. In a 12-man league, there's 3 to 4 teams always tanking. That means only 2 teams that are really trying to make the playoffs are left out. In redraft, half of the league that is trying to make the playoffs is left out. it's a whole different dynamic. It's cutthroat. So I love redraft, but at the same time, Dynasty's built for a little bit of a different breed, and you never want to be that person in your league of active members that just kind of doesn't really give a crap 8 or 9 months out of the year.
Yeah, and that sort of ruins it for everybody else too, in a way.
And it ruins it for yourself too. It ruins you giving opportunity. I remember one time I logged on to pick up Dak Prescott, and somebody had already picked him up, and this was in the middle of the fucking off season, and I was blown away, and it was a great move by who picked it up. I can't even remember who picked him up, but I was like, oh, that's crazy, because it was Tony Romo's backup at the time. Then Tony Romo breaks his collarbone or whatever, and Dak Prescott steps up into QB1 territory. So those opportunities that you miss if you're just a
I
non-active
remember there was
owner.
a time I tried to pick up Adam Thielen, and I looked, and he got picked up the day before, and then he was like amazing for Minnesota, and
so
nuts.
it's a completely different dynamic. Like Drew said, the team building of Dynasty is unmatched. You can't get that in redraft. You just kind of have to take what you're given, because the draft you don't have the option to get anybody you want. So you have to take what you're given and make what you can out of it. That's why it's kind of cool. Dynasty, you kind of can do it your own way.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
like
it's super
how
cool.
you can grab a player in Dynasty and like they can get injured for the whole year, where in
you
redraft
like that?
that's a death sentence. At least in Dynasty, you still have that player, you still have that talent.
Yeah,
so.
people who've been holding Darius Geis going into his third year. He's played 2 games.
There's people that still have Josh Gordon on their team.
There
Remember
it
that?
is.
Ugh.
I'll never let him die.
You should. I think it should be over. I can't say much. I think
He's been posting a lot on
I'm holding
Instagram
Antonio
lately.
Brown still. It's okay.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
retired
I-
for the third
You want
time.
to know something else? People that play in Dynasty leagues follow their players' Instagram.
Yeah, they do. I mean, that's the best place. Not just Instagram, Twitter, just anything.
Yeah.
Any source that you can hear something coming from them, you wanna get invested. in.
I do follow my whole roster on Instagram, and then I unfollow them when I trade them or they get cut.
Oh, that's
That's
lame.
so
See,
funny.
I keep a select few.
Yeah, me too. I follow a lot of people that I don't even have on my team.
I did have to
just like-
unfollow a few people that like I traded away because they were kind of annoying. Like James Conner is kind of annoying. He's so trying to be inspirational on Twitter all the
He's
time.
a
and,
cancer
like,
survivor.
I know
he is
It's
inspirational.
great story. That's awesome.
Okay, I hate cancer survivors. Sorry, Adam.
Not true at all. He's a great story, but it doesn't need to always be God's work every
Yeah.
third second tweet.
That's fair.
Do we have anything else for the listeners on the episode? Anything else you guys want to talk about?
I want to talk about one more thing.
What's that?
From this division, since we kind of kept it NFC West.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a breakout. Any breakout player that you have that
Oh,
maybe is
that's right.
going to really launch past their ADP or whatever you want. And mine is Christian Kirk.
Nice.
That's a good one.
I just think he's got a lot of opportunity in front of him. Now, Larry Fitz is not going to go away, so his targets aren't going to come cheap. He's going to have to work for them. But the entire season, he is going to be almost an afterthought for that Arizona offense. It's going to be
Yes.
DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray, and whoever is running the ball, and then Larry Fitzgerald. It's not going to be, let's figure out a way to stop Christian Kirk this game. Now, that maybe hurt his target share a little bit, but his efficiency is going to skyrocket. And in an offense that is throw, tons of opportunity out there, if you're efficient, you're going to get fed. You're going to have a dynasty ADP rise. And in redraft, I'm sure you could get him for even cheaper. But
Yeah.
certainly in dynasty, he's a good buy because of how young he is and being tied to that offense in Kyler Murray.
Obviously, I want to shout out DK. We all know what this guy can do. We know he's got another year to grow with Russ. I love DK coming out of college. I still love him now more than ever. Now that he's proved what he can do for after a year.
Okay, question then for you, Vaso. Where
Yeah.
do you see DK Metcalf finishing this year in PPR? For last year reference, he was 33, 30 standard.
Yeah, I do have him in that other trash dynasty league. I think he could easily finish top 25 conservatively. I think he could. Hopefully
Is
he
top
could finish
25 a
top
breakout
20.
when if you finish 30 last year and then the next year you finish 25?
No, I think top 20
Yeah.
would be considered breakout.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about DK going into this year. Obviously, I like his future, but I don't know.
You got a breakout
I
in this
do.
division?
Mine is going to be Tyler Higbee. He kind of showed up at the end of last year when they
That's a
started bringing more
good
two
one.
tight end sets.
Mhm.
He's kind of a do-it-all tight end. He's a decent blocker, super athletic as a tight end. His numbers last year weren't eye-popping, but he had some
Good thing
some
you
boom
mentioned
weeks.
him. We would have been a miss to miss Higbee.
And he's
Yeah.
only 27.
He's
Which-
entering his tight end
Which
prime.
in tight end
Yeah.
years, you're 27 to 31. That's your prime years.
I personally like him more than Gerald Everett. I don't really know why, honestly. Like just watching them play, I kind of like Higbee more. But I think I think he'll finish as a tight end 1, which isn't really saying much.
Mhm.
But I like Tyler Higbee.
You really like to see his jump to in 2018 he
Yeah.
went 24 receptions, 300 yards. 2019, 69 receptions, nice, 734 yards.
Yeah.
So he essentially tripled up in both
Yeah.
categories. That's a step forward that you like to see.
He's on that Austin Hooper kind of career growth pattern, and I like Austin Hooper.
I think most people do, but I
Yeah.
think let's talk about Austin Hooper for a second.
Oh, okay,
It's-
we're getting into next week's episode.
I think it's him going to Cleveland is rough for him though.
I
That's
agree.
Not that I think that Cleveland's going to use their tight ends a lot because they got the offensive coordinator from Minnesota, I believe,
Yeah,
who like to
yeah.
incorporate 2 tight ends. But he's not going to be a Matt Ryan. Oh, Julio's not open. I
Mhm.
know I'm going to
Yeah.
get the ball to Austin Hooper type thing. It's
Yeah.
going to be targets
Yeah,
are going
he
to be
might
harder to
take a
find.
step back
Yeah,
this
Baker's
year.
not nearly as conservative as Matt Ryan is.
But we didn't
No.
have to go down the.
No, I mean I like Austin Hooper. I'll talk
Austin
about
Hooper.
him more
Oh,
later on.
yeah.
Uh,
Me and you both.
Yeah.
Anything else?
On the way home?
We could shout out the NBA. Their
Scrimmaging
scrimmage games are
right now?
live.
Yeah,
now.
they are.
That's pretty hot, man.
I watched 30 seconds. Paul George had a nasty step back 3.
Oh, dude, Bobo looks so good on the Nuggets.
Jokic was a mean point guard too.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this season. I think the
Um,
Nuggets had like 9 players today or something.
I don't
Maybe
know,
7
but
players.
Bull is actually getting randomly drug tested after today.
Is he
Yeah,
really?
the NBA said that. Yeah.
That's so funny.
I watched the full fight today. Somebody tweeted it. I don't know. It just says this is the best fight I've ever seen. You got to watch it of Anderson Silva and Israel Edias. I don't even know how to
That
pronounce
fight
it.
is not the best fight.
I didn't say it was, but that fight is insane, man. They're just literally both taunting each other. So
Is that the one when Anderson Silva got knocked out taunting him?
no, he didn't get
No.
knocked out. He got punched. He got punched in the face straight up 3 times in a row and didn't put his hands up at all and just ate all of them and then kind of like shimmied after or like smiled. He lost the fight and he got pretty beat up, but it was pretty badass.
Was
He
this
just-
prime Anderson Silva?
no?
No,
Oh,
this
okay.
was maybe like a year or 2 ago.
Yeah.
Adesanya is actually
It was a year
signed
ago.
to fight the beef junkie Paulo Costa. This guy needs to get roid tested. They're fighting in September. I'm
Well,
excited
I
for
became
that
a big
fight.
fan of his while watching it. He fights really cool. It's like
Oh
a-
yeah,
like a
he's
freaking
so
spider.
entertaining.
But
Yeah.
we should start a Dynasty UFC.
I'm down for Dynasty Golf as well.
Oh, yeah. I would be all over the UFC. There's a great fight upcoming this Saturday, but let's not get off topic. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Third Down Punt. Anybody else we want to shout out?
I
I
want
wanna-
to shout out Voss's mom.
I would love to shout out Rula and my boy Josh Gordon. He'll
right.
never die.
You can't
Thank you
just
guys
shout out
for
Josh Gordon
tuning
on
in.
every podcast.
He'll never
Vasso.
die.
That's
Yeah.
not, or Drew. That's not
And
something
Antonio
that you can just
Brown, he's going to the Seahawks as well, so draft him, pretty high. Did we just lose like